Welcome back to the Stretch the Floor podcast. I'm Matthew, and I'm here as always with Venushan. And it is one of the most exciting trade deadline Thursdays, I think, in recent memory. Since the last time we talked, there have been 18 trades and two buyouts since the last time we recorded. So, I mean, we're kind of doing this just a few hours after the trade deadline. We're kind of getting our, not quite live, but we've had a couple hours to process what went down. Kyle Lowry not getting traded, a couple other really, really big trades, though. Like I said, we have 18 trades to break down, so we're going to try our best to be organized about this. I think we'll do it team by team. We'll start sort of chronologically. The first trade happened last night, which was the Clippers making a move with the Kings for a guy named Mfiondu Kabengele and a heavily protected second to the Kings for a heavily protected second.
Yeah, so basically just opened up a roster spot, the Clippers did, and they're just looking to buy out someone. Nothing more than that. Pretty simple trade. The next Clippers trade is kind of the big Clippers trade of the day, and that's the Rajon Rondo trade. They acquired Rajon Rondo for Lou Williams. They gave up 2 seconds to facilitate this trade. And what are your thoughts on this trade?
I'm it's I was I thought they would be players for Rondo. I didn't think they would be giving up like an actual piece of their like playoff rotation in Lou Will.
Mhm.
Now, Lou Will has never really ever been good in the playoffs. To me, my initial reaction is just the Clippers saying we're betting on playoff Rondo being playoff Rondo a thing
Yeah,
again, and that's a guy who can actually start in the playoffs, be a good defender in the playoffs, have more impact on a team than a Lou Williams. I'm surprised they didn't push to try to include like a I don't know, like a Kennard. I know Kennard has more term on his deal, so does like
yeah,
a couple other guys who actually have those type of salaries. I guess Lou Will was the only salary that gets it done.
yeah. Also, Kennard's just younger, and this year, honestly, Kennard's been better. Like Lou Will,
Yeah, yeah,
like I think people have to just realize like something happened this year. Like a lot of that team culture was kind of stripped away. Age is coming up too. You do get older, you do get worse, and he's kind of washed. This probably is the last year of Lou Will's career. He might sign for 1 year veteran minimum somewhere after this, but he's kind of
yeah.
done being that real contributor. So you get rid of his contract, you get Rajon Rondo. Win-win move for you. Do it. Makes sense from the Hawks' point of view. You get rid of 7.5 million next year because Rondo's a 2 year deal. Lou Will's done after this year. That 7.5 million keeps you under the tax when you have to max out
Mm-hmm.
John Collins because he didn't get moved. So it's a win-win deal. It's a pretty small deal, but Rajon Rondo could have huge impacts
Yeah.
if he's
I
playing
mean,
like last year.
you say like, oh, you can't bet on Rondo just transforming into this like all NBA caliber player in the playoffs, but he does it every year. He did it with New Orleans. He did it obviously with Boston. He did it last year with the Lakers. If playoff Rondo with Ibaka and the two superstars Kawhi and Paul George, that does raise the ceiling of this playoff team, because I think one of the biggest things everyone always kind of has had to take away from the Clippers in the playoffs was Lou Williams. It gets targeted defensively. He's just not the same player in the playoffs, and now you're just kind of taking that out of the equation and hoping that a guy like Rondo actually elevates that ceiling.
Yeah, and second round picks for a championship level team, you really shouldn't be
Yeah,
thinking too much about that. So yeah, it's a pretty simple trade.
yeah. All right, so
Okay.
yeah. So those are the only moves the Clippers made. The Kings made another move with last night the Kings made their first move of the trade deadline period, which was acquiring DeLon Wright for Corey Joseph, and they also gave up 2 seconds. One was via the Lakers in 2021 this year, and their own in 2024.
Yeah, so basically they save around like 3 million for next year's when they have to re-sign Rashawn Holmes, they have to re-sign maybe Marvin Bagley, maybe not. They basically just save $3 million and get an upgrade for the cost of 2 seconds because Delon Wright at this point of his career is better than Corey Joseph.
Higher ceiling than Corey Joseph, and probably better
And
right now.
he's better right now. Like he's a
Yeah,
better defender, better off-ball shooter, and he could play the small forward better
yeah,
because he actually has that size. So yeah, a better fit for the roster, better contract, cost 2 seconds. I think you have to do that deal. The seconds are this year's 2021 second, and the Oh no, this year's 2020 second that they had of the Lakers. So
from
they
the
still keep
Lakers. Yeah, yeah,
so they still keep their 2021 second and a
yeah.
2024 second. So yeah, it's a much needed trade, and they had to do it.
hmm Yeah. On the Pistons side, I mean, you get worse as a
Picks,
team, and then you
yeah,
get a couple of picks. That's pretty much basically it from their side. Okay, the only other trade that the Kings made this deadline was another guard, Terrence Davis from the Raptors, basically for a second round pick. I'm not quite sure what year it is or what the protections are on it. I don't know if
yeah,
that information has come out yet.
no,
So basically, just Terrence Davis for some future second round pick. We can get into later. We'll get into just in a minute, like what the Raptors are doing with all these seemingly minor moves. But initial thoughts: Terrence Davis to the Kings.
Terrence Davis has potential, so you're just taking a risk on him. If he can get a new scenario, just come in there and just shoot the ball, play make a little bit. You're just taking a risk on this guy who you get his rights, kind of sign him. He's just a good guy to have on the end of your bench in case an injury happens. He could step up and do pretty well.
Yeah,
And we're pretty high on him. He could shoot well. He could penetrate well. He has a lot of potential. For a second, I would do this any day.
for a second, yeah, he was an undrafted player, and he has raised his stock to that of a second round pick. And I think you could have gotten even a little more back for him. I think for a second round pick than a second round pick.
Yeah, Raptors did this trade because they needed that open roster spot because
Yeah,
they're probably looking at the buyout market, probably looking for a center because
yeah,
there's a couple centers available now. So they want to be really aggressive in this buyout market and they needed that open spot.
yeah.
So it's a win-win for both teams.
Yeah. All right. So let's pivot straight to the Raptors from there because they were one of the biggest players of this deadline. Um, First move they made was Norman Powell. It was in the rumors. It seemed like he was the far likelier move that was going to happen over Kyle Lowry. It ends up being Portland for Gary Trent and Rodney Hood. No picks involved, just basically straight up Powell for Trent and Hood.
Yeah, I think this is a big win for the Trailblazers. And you just get a player that could drive and score, that could score off like given shoots from Damian Lillard or CJ McCollum, that can guard threes at a decent effective rate because he's switchable, he has playoff experience. The only problem is he is a restricted free agent after
Yeah,
this. You're gonna have his bird rates, and he is gonna demand a pretty hefty contract,
18.
maybe in the 20 million range.
Yeah,
And man, but he does raise their ceiling, and I like it because to win a championship, you have to go into tax, and that's how you have to operate your team. You have to be worried about this tax situation. If you're too worried about it, then you can have an OKC situation where you never win a championship but have all the talent.
yeah. And I mean, $10 or $10 million for a guy basically averaging 20 and scoring more than 20 on a lot of nights, shooting a ridiculously efficient percentage from the field. One of the best shooters in the league this year, period. And has also shown like with all the Raptors injuries and COVID missed games and everything, has been the first option multiple
Yeah,
nights. So he can, if you want to bring him off the bench, he can do that. If you want to play a 3 guard closing lineup, Dame, CJ, Norm with like, whatever, who else there, I think that's a much upgraded lineup over one with Trent. He's basically just the best of Gary Trent pretty much all the
yeah.
time with Norman Powell. So where do you think this puts the Blazers in the West rankings?
I know the Utah Jazz have the number one seed, but as long as the Blazers avoid LeBron, I think they could beat anyone in the West.
I I do agree with that. That's a good point. What seed are they at right now? They're a 4 seed.
They're the fourth
Correct
seed.
me if I'm wrong.
LeBron's Lakers are gonna obviously plummet a lot.
Yeah,
So as long as they avoid that like 2-7 matchup potentially with LeBron,
yeah.
as long as they avoid LeBron, they should be good, and I think they could win up to the Western Conference Finals.
That's I now that you say that, I do agree with that. They have one of the best offensive teams period in the league.
Yeah,
Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, Norman Powell on the floor at the same time.
Nurkic.
Nurkic healthy, hopefully at some point.
Yeah,
Covington, you can throw him on Kawhi or whatever, just slow him down a little bit. Hopefully, I guess Norman Powell would be guarding Paul George in that scenario. But I mean, yeah,
it's
this
just out
team,
offense.
yeah, not too many teams are going to be able to stop this offensively, and they could go as far as the Western Conference Finals. You're right.
Yeah, and they have a really solid bench.
Yeah, Anthony Simons. I mean, Zach Collins,
And
is
his
he ever going to
Cantor,
play? And his Cantor. Yeah,
Mello.
Yeah,
solid.
yeah, cannot forget about Melo. Yeah, very, very solid. I can't wait to see what these teams look like for the rest of the season, and like going to the playoffs is gonna be so. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. For the Raptors' perspective, I think they maybe could have gotten a little bit more value back for him. But I mean, Gary Trent Jr., 21 years old, does have one more year of term left on his deal until his rookie deal is up and he's an RFA. It's not a terrible return. I do think they could have gotten something better, but maybe that just wasn't out there.
I think it's a pretty fair trade because you get someone that's 6 years younger and averages
Yeah.
5 less points.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good deal. And he's probably going to sign for around 16, 17 million per year,
Yeah.
which is could be a $2 to $3 million tax save or pay towards the cap that they save. We know he's turned down a 15 per from the Trailblazers, so we know he wants more than 15 million. So it is going to be an expensive contract, and he is going to get it because he's a good defender, unlike most
Yeah.
snipers. So he's going to get that $17 million deal. It's around a $3 million save from Powell's potential 20 million. But this trade is really going to be judged in the offseason and both these guys' contract and how big it is. Because right now, Powell's a better player, but it's all about the offseason and why the Raptors made this move.
Yeah. And Rodney Hood is in there. I was honestly kind of surprised he didn't get moved like again at this deadline. He was just in there to make the salaries work. I don't I don't know if he's going to crack the rotation. Like
I think he is.
he probably will. The Raptors don't have much coming
Yeah.
off that bench, especially after getting rid of Terrence Davis and Matt Thomas was the other minor move they made, clearing another roster spot. Masai Ujiri, Bobby Wester had us all thinking that a Kyle Lowry trade was coming because they did the 2-for-1 with Portland, cleared a couple of roster spots with Thomas and Davis,
Yeah.
and it just never happened. I mean, is there anything else you want to add about the Matt Thomas trade?
Nothing much. He's probably not going to play for Utah. He's probably just going to be the
No.
end of the bench. Another second for the Toronto. Pretty
Yeah.
good trade.
Yeah.
But I think this does guarantee Ronnie Hood minutes because he is an upgrade
That's
over
true. Yeah. Now
Stanley
that I think of it,
Johnson.
yeah. Yeah.
He's an upgrade over Stanley Johnson, upgrade over Utah Wananobi. He's an upgrade over Bembry. He's just a better offensive player than all those guys. And he's bigger than them too. He's like 6'8", 6'9", so he might be
Yeah.
getting some power forward minutes. I think it's a good trade.
Yeah. Now that you say it, I do actually agree with you. Rodney Hood. I just think Rodney Hood, he's averaging like, I don't even know, 8 points a game this year. I'm like, oh, he's not going to crack the rotation. Then I'm like, wait, is he better than Watanabe on offense? Is he better than
Yeah.
like Paul Watson?
Bembry. Yeah.
Bembry, he's better than all those guys offensively. He might be the seventh man. He might be the sixth man. Like,
I think Boucher, if he's still off the bench, is probably the sixth
okay,
man.
well, sixth best or sixth most minutes. I don't know because Baines
Yeah.
technically starts sometimes or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
He's going to get minutes. You're right about that. All right, so what team should we pivot to from here?
I think the biggest suitors, we can maybe go to Orlando.
All right, Orlando made probably the most moves at the deadline. The biggest being we had an all-star traded. It was the only all-star traded of this deadline. Vucevic to the Bulls, kind of a dark horse, low-key suitor that none of us kind of expected. Vucevic to the Bulls for Aminu for Wendell Carter, Otto Porter, and 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, so the Bulls got the starting center, Nikola Vucevic, the center that's going to be the cornerstone of the franchise alongside Zach LaVine. They got a solid bench player too. Like Al-Farouq Aminu can still defend and still play really well.
Yeah.
And they gave up Wendell Carter Jr., someone who's been benched, someone who the coach, Billy Donovan, doesn't like that much, someone who's also injury prone. They got rid of Otto Porter, who's just kind of there to make the salaries match.
Yeah.
He's not really that big of a player. And then the 2 picks, the 2021 first round pick and the 2023 first round pick. Ideally, the Bulls make the playoffs in both these scenarios. They're protected 1 to 4. They're not going to get in that high with Zach LaVine and Vucevic. So it's a pretty fair haul for Vucevic as you get a young player in Wendell Carter Jr. You get 2 essentially unprotected picks. And for the Bulls, you get your guy, and you just got to see how it rolls. I personally don't like it from the Bulls' perspective because
Oh wow,
it's a mediocre team. this is not a championship team, and I don't support mediocrity and just being happy with playoff berths and no noise in the playoffs.
See, I'm surprised you say that because I kind of love this trade the second I saw it for the Bulls. I mean, yeah, they're not a championship team. They're obviously not a championship team,
Yeah,
but they could be a top five team talent wise in the East. I mean, you look at this lineup makes a lot more sense to me with Vucevic and Levine as the two pillars. Patrick Williams has been really good this year,
yeah,
way better rookie than both of us ever expected. This maybe makes Markkinen, I don't know, maybe
expendable.
he gets expendable, maybe he gets more open shots. I don't know. It's just their team makes more sense to me. Like you got a nice defender there in Aminu. It just I don't know. They're top seven. It comes together for me. I just feel pretty good about it. Are they going to be winning a playoff series? Most likely not. But
Yeah,
maybe next year, I wouldn't be surprised if they were predicted in the top five in the East, and if they maybe even like made another acquisition or something, become more of a free agent destination. I don't know. I like this just moving forward. Vucevic, it's a good place for him. I don't think his numbers are going to decrease. I think they're going to pretty much stay the same. He's going to help Levine. I just like it.
yeah. Like their offense is going to be great.
Yeah.
The way they just rotate, the amount of shooting in their offense, both their center and power forward to shoot the ball. But their defense, you got Lowry Markkinen, Zach Levine,
Yeah.
Vucevic, three guys that are, and Kobe White.
Kobe White.
Those
Yeah.
four players are going to be on the court at the same time to close games and start games. Oh man, like that's going to be tough. That's going to be
But
tough. And
yeah.
you're expecting rookie Patrick Williams to be the best defender day in day out.
No.
That's going to be tough.
Well, Sadaransky's a pretty good perimeter defender. I like him.
Yeah, that's why maybe if Thaddeus Young starts and
Yeah.
Larry Markkinen moves to the bench,
Yeah. That might be the
then
move. Yeah.
this team might play a little bit better. But if you look at that projected starting lineup, they just seem they're going to get killed on offense over and over again. And man, having two great players doesn't always mean success. Like we could look at the Washington Wizards,
Yeah.
who have two great players but can't play any defense and are sitting outside the play-ins right now. So it's a big risk. They traded 2 first-round picks to get it done. They improve on paper, but man, I don't know. I think they should have just went through the draft and waited for another pick to hit.
See, but how do you think like their draft pick this year is not it's like top 10 I think right now. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
that is probably more valuable than just being mediocre and getting like a bottom 10 or bottom 12 pick. I don't know. I like when there's more exciting teams to watch. And it's
Yeah.
not like Vucevic is a rental. He's there for the future. I think you can build a really good winning team around, maybe not around, but have Vucevic and Zach Levine on a winning team. I don't see why not. And he has term. He's not super old. He lets them compete now, and I think just kind of get the ball rolling going into the future.
Aaron Gordon could do
I agree.
so much things with Jokic and Jamal
Yeah.
Murray and Michael Porter Jr. When he's the fourth option, he could do so much, and he could be so explosive. And he has such good defenders to like not really model. He's already a good defender, but if he learns the tips and tricks from Paul Millsap, he can become an even better defender.
Yeah.
And he's just a young, athletic Paul Millsap who fits so well next to Jokic already. So I
Yeah.
think it's a great fit for Denver.
That's exactly what he is. He's going to be a defense first role right away. He's
Yeah,
taking LeBron in a matchup against the Lakers. He's taking Kawhi. He's probably
yeah,
taking Luka in a matchup with with Dallas. Like you said, and the minutes he doesn't play, you throw Paul Millsap in there, he's going to do the same thing.
yeah,
But Aaron Gordon is one of the most athletic players in the league. Average, I think it was 15 or 16 a game on 37% from three this year on Orlando. Can you imagine him being the fourth option playing off of Jokic, Murray, uh, Michael Porter Jr., coached by Mike Malone? That I think he could average like 18. I think he could elevate himself maybe even above Michael Porter Jr. in their like pecking order.
I just like this Denver lineup because now they have Campos at point guard, Jamal Murray at shooting guard. They have Michael Porter Jr. at small forward, Aaron Gordon at power forward, Jokic at center, and then they have a solid bench with Monty Morris at point guard, six-man Will Barton at shooting guard.
Mm-hmm.
Small forward, they have Paul Millsap, power forward, Michael Green, and center, JaVale McGee. they're just so good defensively in every position. They have good backups. They're ready for injuries. They're ready for the long run. And this just seems like a team that's going to go on a big winning streak and get into the top three and try to get my boy Jokic that MVP.
So wait, that's interesting. You said Campazzo as the starting point guard. Do you actually see that as a playoff strategy?
Yeah, I think the way when you have Campazzo's playmaking in there with Jokic's playmaking, with Jamal Murray's playmaking, I think the ball just rotates so well, and it's either him or Monty Morris starting at that point guard spot. I just have Campazzo in there right now because Monty Morris
Yeah.
is still dealing with a couple of nagging injuries, but Monty might start too.
I like PJ Dozier too. He's like good length off the bench. Like
Yeah,
he can do some things for you too. Okay, so we'll do a kind of a minor pivot here. You mentioned JaVale McGee. They acquired JaVale McGee for where is it?
2 seconds.
2 second rounds. That's
Yeah,
a pretty good haul for JaVale McGee,
good
in
trade
my
for
opinion.
good
Good trade for both
Cavs.
sides.
Yeah, good trade for both sides. Nothing
Again,
else really to
win-win
say.
for both sides. Nothing else really
Yeah,
to say. They got their backup
yeah,
big, probably comparable to Mason Plumlee,
just way less playmaking,
way
but
less
way better
playmaking.
defending. Way
Yeah,
better defending.
yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Okay, so back to the final Magic trade. Also a relatively major trade. Evan Fournier on his way to the Celtics. He
yeah,
fits right into that trade exception, and the Celtics gave up 2 second round picks.
yeah. Celtics got steal. They gave up nothing
Yep,
for a 20-point scorer.
yep,
He's probably going to start at the shooting guard spot. Even if he doesn't start, he's going to be a great sixth man. Uh, they needed to mill this trade because now you have that third 20-point scoring option because
yeah,
Kemba Walker is so injury prone right now that you got a reliable third 20-point option
yeah.
with Evan Fournier. You have crazy shooting. You have clutchness. You have someone who's not afraid to shoot the 3 too. I think it's a really big win for them. The only problem I'm a little worried about is removing Daniel Tice. They're relying heavy on Robert Williams
Robert Williams,
and Tristan Thompson,
Tristan Thompson.
which is a center rotation I don't like. But Robert Williams has shown potential, and this is the time to shine. If he wants to be that
Yeah,
center of the future, this is his time.
yeah, and he's way more athletic than Tristan Thompson, way more athletic than Daniel Tice. Can protect the rim better than both those guys.
Better.
So I mean,
Yeah.
the bones of a great center are there. I don't think a center rotation of him and Tristan Thompson right now is even good enough to win a playoff series, like
Yeah.
let alone a championship. But this is exactly what the Celtics needed. Even with Kemba on the floor, they really struggled getting anything at all on offense from anyone except the big three. Fournier gives them another 20-point scorer. They can have two 20-point scorers on the floor at all times when everyone's healthy. And that's not something a lot of other teams can say.
Yeah. But I do think they also dropped the ball a little bit because we've seen Vucevic get moved for 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
I personally think for Boston Celtics, I would have thrown 3 first-round picks to get him because he just fits this team and makes them contenders again. So I do think they dropped the ball a little bit, but they did get an insane steal for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So you got to take your wins and loss with Danny Ainge.
I mean, think about the first round picks on their team right now that aren't getting any minutes. Like just off the top of my head, I know that Neesmith isn't getting any minutes. Peyton Pritchard's already there. Langford, I believe, maybe he was a second round pick. He's getting no minutes. They have a bunch of guys that are just not playing.
Yeah.
They clearly don't need these late first round picks, at least over the next 4 or 5 years. Why not just throw them at the Magic? A first round pick always looks good to a GM in a trade. I don't know. I think I agree with you. They should have thrown 3 firsts at him and at them and gotten Vucevic. But Fournier is still a good move.
Yeah, and someone who I think would have also been a little bit of an upgrade over Evan Fournier, they could have went for Victor Oladipo. We'll talk about him later, but he essentially got moved for nothing, and 1 first would have got his deal done. So I do think they dropped the ball there again. But looking at what they did get, great fit, great player, but they should have got more, and they should have done more with their trade exception.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so you touched on Miami there. I think it's a good time to pivot to Miami. Victor Oladipo. We'll start with the first move they made. Kind of minor, but kind of not minor. They got Nemanja Bjelica from the Kings for Mo Harkless and Chris Silva in a move I liked. They kind of gave up 2 of their endless pile of switchy wings that can defend. Didn't really lose anything there, and they got a guy who can basically be Kelly Olynyk, shoot threes and be big. Uh, anything else to add to that?
He's basically Kelly Olynyk. The second he got traded to them, Kelly Olynyk was gone,
Yeah.
and that happened.
Yeah. So Kelly Olynyk was gone in a trade for Victor Oladipo, like you mentioned. Victor Oladipo finally on his way to Miami, as we have both predicted in the past, in
Yeah,
exchange for Avery Bradley, who we said was going to get traded, Kelly Olynyk, and a pick swap. Now, okay, I want to hear your thoughts on this before I
I
give mine.
think Pat Riley is considered the trade deadline godfather, and he kind of just proved it again. What a steal! He didn't even give up a pick. He gave up a pick swap. What a deal!
That pick swap is not going to be conveyed. Like their
No,
pick is
not at
not.
all.
It's a pick swap this year. No, it's next year,
Next
2022.
year,
Their
yeah,
2022 pick is not going to be higher than Houston's 2022
yeah.
pick if it is something went disastrously wrong. So
Houston will
like
still have a top pick too. It's not like
Houston,
Houston's gonna become good. Yeah,
right? So Avery Bradley, I mean, he's played
not
on a
playing.
championship team last year, but he's not playing.
Yeah,
Kelly Olynyk is the same player as Bielitsa, and they're in the rumors to land LaMarcus Aldridge, so they obviously don't need Kelly Olynyk. You
yeah.
get Victor Oladipo. He averaged close to 20, I think, on Houston, but his percentages were low, understandably so on a team like Houston. Being the third option on Miami, possibly even
Crazy.
fourth,
Yeah,
amazing, amazing. Play defense and do what Victor Oladipo does without the pressure on him that he had in Houston. This is a massive steal for Pat Riley.
yeah. And he doesn't need a close. Like if he's
Yeah,
having a bad night, sit on the bench. We got Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson still
yeah,
on his team. Like they have a starting lineup of Dragic, Oladipo, Butler. Uh, who do you want to put at the power forward spot? They can put anyone at the power forward spot.
Iggy, Marcus
I don't
Aldridge if
know.
they get him.
It's probably Bam and LaMarcus Aldridge
Yeah,
if they get LaMarcus Aldridge, and then they still have a bench of Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, Duncan
yeah,
Robinson, Iggy, Trevor Ariza, Bielitsa. They still have a solid bench. They're still deep. They have all their picks essentially.
yeah.
Well, they didn't give up any picks. They only lost some picks in previous trades, but they didn't lose any extra additional picks. Great deadline by the Heat. Pat
Yeah,
Riley is called the trade deadline
yeah,
godfather for a reason, and he proved it again.
amazing. And I said the Bulls had like versatility in their roster and the way they could play. Just look at the 10 best players on Miami. You can, if you
Yeah,
wanted to, you could run out like an all shooting lineup of Dragic, Hero, Duncan Robinson, assuming they get Aldridge. Even if they don't get Aldridge, Bielitsa, whatever, Bam. Bam doesn't shoot, but or you can run an all defensive lineup with Jimmy Butler, Iguodala, Bam, like
Precious Achua.
Precious Achua. It's just crazy. They have so much versatility. They can guard any type of team. They can score kind of against any type of team. I'm starting to feel a lot better about the Heat in the Eastern Conference, and I'm probably having them as like a top three, maybe close tied, maybe ahead of the Bucks in terms of kind of the East pecking order right now.
Yeah, if they sign Andre Drummond, who's going to be a huge swinger,
Yeah,
if they sign Andre Drummond, in my opinion, they can win a championship. That's how good and versatile this team is.
yeah,
But if they don't sign Drummond and they get someone like a LMA or Buggy, they're probably just going to be right in there with the Sixers and
the Bucks, Sixers. Yeah,
teams that are going to get beat by the Nets. But yeah, they really recovered well. They're gonna have a good free agency too because Trevor Ariza is getting off the book, which is 15 million. Iggy's gonna get off the book 15 million. Bailey's gonna get off the book 7 million. You spend that $37 million to re-sign Nunn, Robinson, and Victor Oladipo, and boom, you have your team there. You sign a bunch of veterans, veteran minimum, and you
yeah,
keep moving.
yeah. And it's kind of flying under the radar how good Jimmy Butler has been this year because he missed so
Yeah,
much time, was not an All Star, but he's been amazing this year. Bam has been his old self, even better than last year. This team is going to be super fun to watch in the playoffs, and I really want to see a rematch Bucks Heat. I really
be great.
personally really want to see that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's go into this three-way trade next. This trade involves OKC, the Knicks, and Philadelphia. So George Hill and Canadian Iggy Brazdeikis on their way to Philly. Austin Rivers and Tony Bradley, along with the 2025 and 2026 second round pick to OKC, and Terrence Ferguson to the Knicks. Who do this? Does Philly win this trade? Getting George Hill, he's the best player in the trade. That's kind of the only
yeah.
notable thing here, right?
Okay, so OKC picks players don't really matter who they got.
Yeah,
They just did it for the picks.
More
So
picks.
that's kind of done for them. W for them. Philly, they get Giorgio, who's a good rotation player come
Yeah.
playoffs. He's a good rotation player in the regular season as well. He's a veteran. He has finals experience. He's a steady hand. You need that. You can't rely too much on these young guys in playoffs. So I think that's a good trade for them since the Raptors were being too adamant with Kyle Lowry. So I think that's a good trade for them as well. The Knicks, you have so many point guards. So Austin Rivers was getting like 0 minutes. So you have Terrence Ferguson, who's a small forward who's shown flashes
Mm-hmm.
last year with OKC that he could be something. You take a chance on him. If he's nothing, he's nothing. If he's something, he's something. No loss, no real gain. So I think it's just a win from all teams' perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think at least for a lot of the season, George Hill was leading the league in 3-point percentage last year. He is, like you said, veteran. He can just come in, like if those young guys aren't going, playoff experience, finals experience. 100% right about that. More picks for OKC. That's what they want. They don't need George Hill. They get more picks. And like you said, just to change up, Terrence Ferguson isn't any better. He's probably worse than Austin Rivers, pound for pound, but he plays a different position, so he's going to get more time. And that's
Yeah,
pretty even trade on all three sides, kind of like every trade so far, except
yeah.
that Houston Heat one. Okay, there's only a couple more trades to get through here, and the biggest of those being the Dallas Mavericks landing JJ Redick along with Nikola Melli for James Johnson, Wes Iwundu, and a second round pick.
I think that's a huge, huge dub for Dallas
Yep.
because JJ Redick could still be a 40% 3-point shooter, and he could still win you a quarter or two come the playoffs. And I think having that shooting there, having that experience there is going to be more valuable than what they had with James Johnson.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot.
Completely agree. He is basically going to play the Seth Curry role from last year, which they are desperately, desperately missing. And he has more experience in the playoffs than Seth Curry. 40%, I think, is kind of insulting to him if he's playing well. I think he can be like even better than that. He is one of the best 3-point shooters in history, still has it. And
Yeah.
playing on a team like that with the looks he's going to get from Luka is going to be something to see.
Yeah. And from Pelican's point of view, he wanted out. You granted his wish. You get a little bit of toughness with James Johnson, and you just free up some minutes for your young guards to play.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's time we get to the biggest trade of the day. Brad Wanamaker on his way to the Charlotte Hornets. LaMelo Ball is injured, but that doesn't matter anymore because they have Brad Wanamaker. This, I don't know, is this a championship team now?
Yeah, he is. I think he was Steph Curry's mentor. He did teach
Yeah.
Steph how to shoot. So
Mhm.
if he comes in here and he teaches LaMelo how to shoot again, we could see an MVP season from LaMelo next year.
Yeah.
And I think Wanamaker is the key. They're in a playoff seed right now. I can see them pushing to the top four,
Yeah.
and maybe a championship might be on the way.
Yeah. I mean, I personally can't believe they got Wanamaker for just cash.
Yeah.
Just huge,
steal.
huge steal.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but seriously, is he even gonna crack their playoff rotation if they do ever make it into the playoffs?
I think they just wanted an extra guard just because
Yeah.
LaMelo went down. Get an extra guard, get an extra body.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'm pretty sure we only have one more trade left, unless I'm wrong. Am I right
Oh,
about
one
that?
more. Yeah.
One more trade, and that's another cash dump for the Warriors trying to get under that tax. Marquise Chris on his way to San Antonio for a player named Katie Lalonde. Not gonna say I've ever heard of him, but yeah, basically just a cash dump, right?
Yeah, cash dump. Yeah, they needed to get rid of LMA. They just got
Yeah,
Marquise Chris in there.
yeah,
Basically a cash dump. Nothing more to say.
yeah. Okay, before we wrap this up, I don't think we didn't really touch on the biggest non-trade of the day. Kyle Lowry
Yeah.
was not on the move. They were clearing up roster spots to do it. It didn't happen. It seems like the Sixers pulled out. I'm not sure if they were offering Maxi and Thibault and picks or not. The Heat refused to give up Hero. The Clippers thought they were in it. That was never going to happen. At the end of the day, they're just
Lakers refused to give up Talon Horton Tucker.
That's very surprising to me.
Yeah.
Very surprising to me. At the end of the day, there were offers on the table, none in Masai Ujiri's mind that were worthy of Kyle Lowry, which is
surprising.
I guess surprising because if you think you're going to lose him, it doesn't matter if it's a good return or not. Like you should take it, right?
Yeah.
Like we weren't ever going to get Hero. But I mean, I kind of like that Philly package if it was Maxey and Thibault.
Honestly, if it was just Maxi, I like it.
Yeah,
But hey, man, maybe they're expecting a sign and trade. Maybe they're not. We really can't
yeah,
know because it's just rumors. So we don't even know if Maxi was available. But
yeah,
if the rumors are true, then Masai got a little greedy and the Sixers got unlucky because they did a great package and it was definitely fair.
yeah, 100%. And I guess the other biggest non-trade would be Lonzo Ball.
Andre Jump. Oh
Andre
yeah,
Drummond
Lonzo
getting
Ball.
bought out, but Lonzo Ball was
Yeah.
not on the move. We thought maybe Clippers. Clippers got Rondo instead. I guess the Knicks were the only other option.
Balls too. I guess they just
Bulls.
weren't a fan of Lowry marketing. Makes
Yeah,
sense. He
yeah,
is injured a lot.
yeah. Makes sense. All right. Well,
Yeah.
okay. So the other two non-trades, the biggest ones, we already talked about Aldridge getting bought out, but Andre Drummond getting bought out. Like he is there for the Nets. He is there for the Lakers. If he goes to the Nets, like if they weren't already a guaranteed championship, at least like very close to a guaranteed championship, if he goes there, it's over, right? Like there's no point
Yeah.
in playing the rest of the season.
Yes. Actually, you never know because Kevin Durant's injury might be worse than
That's true.
what's
That's
being
true.
reported.
That's true.
Yeah. So there's LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMarcus Cousins, and Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond's number one on that list. LaMarcus Aldridge's number two on that list. DeMarcus Cousins number three on that list. The teams in pecking orders are probably the Nets number one, Lakers two, Heat three. Heat are number one for LaMarcus Aldridge
Yeah.
apparently. Raptors four, Hornets five. Those are probably the five teams looking at them.
How
I
about the
think
Celtics?
Drummond, probably Celtics too. Celtics could definitely use another center to add to that
Yeah.
rotation with Tice out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mavericks?
Mavericks are looking at every player apparently. They're
Yeah.
always rumored at
Yeah.
everyone.
Like
Yeah.
Andre Drummond is a 28 million. He's making 28 mil and he gets too much hate. He's not worth 28 million, but
Yeah.
he's not worth the veteran minimum either. He's
Yeah.
15 boards a game. He's one of the most physically imposing centers in the league. And if he goes to some team for a veteran minimum and is able to be like the fifth or sixth best player on that team, like that is
Crazy.
huge implications on the championship.
Yeah. The Nets actually have a $5 million that they could offer due
That's it
to
right there.
trade injury player exception or something like that from
Yeah.
Dinwiddie.
Mm-hmm.
So the Nets are favorites to sign him, and I just hope he goes to the Lakers because the Lakers really need some help with
Yeah.
Anthony Davis and LeBron out, and a big three of Drummond, Davis, and LeBron is
Yeah.
going to be a fun playoff team. I hope LMA signs with the Heat, which is seeing
Me
the
too.
front runners, because I think he can nice start there, slot in nicely,
Yeah.
and contribute a lot. I hope DeMarcus Cousins signs with the Raptors. Kind of need a center. We have an open roster spot for a reason, so I hope he signs with the Raptors. But more than likely, Nets are getting one or two of these guys.
Yeah. I don't know what else
Can't
to
really
say.
say anything. Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. I don't know how this all happened. Just Blake Griffin getting bought out. Who knows how good he's going to be? Drummond
Yeah.
getting bought out. The Nets. Man, I don't understand. How does this even happen?
Yeah, the Nets are just getting all those veterans to come stack up, and this is going to
Yeah.
look like a good finals matchup. LeBron 8 seed potentially, super team KD. It's going to
Yeah.
be very interesting.
Very, very interesting. And we'll talk about like those guys. Hopefully those dominoes will start to fall over the next week because I want to see these
Yeah.
guys playing as soon as possible, but there's no point in speculating on their roles with those teams yet. So until then, we'll get to that then. Thank you guys for listening to this episode, this insane trade deadline that we're recording about 3 hours after it ended, or maybe a little more than that. I don't know. But thank you guys for listening to this episode. You can check us out on Instagram at Stretch the Floor Podcast. Find us on YouTube at STF Clip. Subscribe to get the best 3, 4, 5 minute clips from the podcast. But most importantly, subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review, leave a rating, and it really helps with the algorithm. That's all. Thank you guys for listening again, and we will see you guys next week.